Assalamu Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. MashaAllah. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala Rasulillah Sayyidi Khalqillah wal Mustafa Habibina wa Rasulina Muhammadin ibn Abdullah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa man walah wa man sara ala darbihi aw istana bi sunnatihi ila yawm ad-din. Allahumma aktubna minhum qulu ameen. نسأله سبحانه أن يجعلنا من الذين يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه إنه مولانا ولي ذلك والقادر عليه سبحانك اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us of those who hear what is said and follow the best of it. Say Ameen. Because certainly Allah Azza wa Jal, when He wanted to summarize the quality by which His servants are known in Surah Al-Zumar, He said, give good news to my servants. فَبَشِّرْ عِبَادِ اللهم اجعلنا من العباد قولوا آمين. Right? Allah says, give glad tidings to my servants, my ibad. May Allah make us from the ibad. Who are the ibad? He says, الَّذِينَ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقَوْلَ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَهُ أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ هَدَاهُمُ اللَّهُ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that they are the ones that when they hear speech, they follow the best of it. And then Allah Azza wa Jal immediately after that qualifies them once again and He says, أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ هَدَاهُمُ اللَّهُ. Those are the ones who Allah Azza wa Jal guided. Allahu Akbar, such a simple quality and an overlooked quality, but a very important quality that makes the difference between salvation in Jannah or punishment and torment in Jahannam. May Allah make us all from the people of Jannah, inshaAllah. Say Ameen. The second point, inshaAllah, before I begin, is Dr. Dhul Fiqar is not only my older brother, okay? Although he is not as old as he looks, mashallah, he's a young man, mashallah. May Allah preserve his health and his wealth and allow us to benefit from his scholarship, inshallah. Say Ameen, and always be in the habit of making dua for the Imam and the Shaykh. This is very good. And this is from our respect to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Because, yes, I know sometimes we think, okay, he's my buddy. Yes, he's your buddy. Okay, he drinks chai with you. That's good. But still, he is the one that Allah Azza wa Jal chose to deliver the light of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Yani, this is his responsibility. This is an honor. And all of us are like that. This is why do you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commanded us with the love of our parents, for example? Why? Because they are the ones, the first ones to teach us Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is who? Your father, your mother, right? Subhanallah al-Azim. Okay, the first one to teach you Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, the first one to go into the bathroom with you and do wudu with you is who? Your mother, right? Subhanallah. Our love for our parents stems from our love for Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and our love for our mashayikh is also the same. So make dua for them as well. And yani truly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, sometimes it's not by the increased amount of time that you have with these scholars, just the ability to know that they are a reliable source of guidance in your life. That's who Dr. Dhul Fiqar is for me, and I ask Allah that He preserves him and that we appreciate all our mashayikh and all our teachers. I always say this, my teacher, one of my teachers in New Jersey, Dr. Muhammad Qatanani, right? I always tell people, wallahi, there are things that Dr. Qatanani knows about me that my own father does not know, okay? Because I was very close to my teacher. Our mashayikh are blessings, so we have to take advantage of them. And so this really is a good segue to the topic of the discussion today. And what I'm discussing with you today is actually some concepts that I've put together in a book, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, titled Scenes from a Generation, Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi alayhi rahmatullah. This is a book that I've been working on for the past 8 years or so. And but what happened in Gaza was the catalyst to get me to finalize everything. Because if what happened in Gaza does not spark us to really do our part, and we were talking about this in the khutbah, then what is it? Then our hearts are dead, really. And that is the true death. The innocent children and the mothers and the fathers of Gaza, they're not dead. We know this. We have aqidah, right? We are believers. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say? وَلَا تَقُولُوا لِمَنْ يُقْتَلُ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ أَمْوَاتٍ بَلْ أَحْيَاء أَلَيْسَ كَذَلِكَ? Aren't they alive? This is not a marketing scheme. Like, it's not cute. Like, Allah's not here to uplift you. No, this is real. They are alive. بَلْ أَحْيَاءٌ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِمْ يُرْزَقُونَ فَرِحِينَ. Right? They are alive with their Lord, receiving their provisions and they're happy. Allahu Akbar. But if I do nothing, then who's dead? I'm the dead one. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from the death of our heart, inshallah. So this book, okay, it was revolutionary for me because it is a translation and a summary of a book that I read when I was 16 years old. And until today, it affects me. And I know, by the way, today people like to exaggerate. They say there's this one book, it changed my life. And they say that about every book they read because we don't read anymore, okay? SubhanAllah. But no, this really was different for me. And I'm going to explain to you why this particular book was different for me, inshallah. My contention with the way that Islam is studied today is that Islam is not studied in a conceptual fashion. Islam is studied in like a Sheikh Google Ibn Wikipedia style, okay? What's Sheikh Google Ibn Wikipedia? When was the Battle of Badr? The Battle of Badr was in the second year after Hijrah. There were 313 people that stood by the Prophet ﷺ, and from them were so and so and so. Okay, but did I change your character by revealing facts? Facts don't change people. Actually, how many times have you seen that a doctor smoking cigarettes? You think this is not common? I know there's, mashallah, many doctors in this community, right? The doctor knows that smoking cigarettes causes emphysema, high correlation with lung cancer, shrivels the alveolar sacs in the lung. You know this. The facts are there. But does he stop? No. Why? لأنه في إشي اسمه قلب. There's something called a qalb. هذا القلب, it needs to be overwhelmed with an attachment, with an emotional attachment for change to occur. There's another book, not the one that I'm speaking about, that is written by a contemporary Syrian scholar. She's still alive. Her name is Ad-Doktora Hanan Laham. It's a beautiful book. It's called هدي السيرة النبوية في التغيير الاجتماعي. Okay? The guidance of the seerah in social change. Like, what do we learn from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that actually causes change? How did he change people? It's very beautiful. And she talks about the role of the masjid. She says the masjid's important. Okay, and why is the masjid important? And why the Usama ibn Zayd radiyallahu ta'ala anhu project was a project that was raised in the masjid. And every emotional story that you hear about the Prophet ﷺ with the young boy or with the young girl, subhanallah, was in the masjid. Allahu Akbar. So the idea is, I am asking you to ask yourself, how have you studied your masters? How have you studied your lineage? Be honest. Have you studied them in the style of flashy facts, or have you studied them to fall in love with them? Be honest. And I will say, listen, Al-Rahiq al-Makhtum is one of the greatest books in recounting the seerah of the Prophet ﷺ, but it is also one of the most boring books that you will ever read in your life. Because it is a history book. You can't fall in love with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam by reading his maghazi, by reading his wars. Do you know him? And so the first chapter of the book that I have written is titled, Study Them Like They Are Your Father. Like they are your father. Allahu Akbar. And I'm not belittling the role of the mother. Please, I actually believe we have a major crisis of fatherhood today. And a crisis of understanding masculinity, where Muslim youth even are looking at people who are smoking Cuban cigars in a boat full of scantily clad women, thinking that that is what masculinity looks like. No. I have Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I don't need this garbage. Subhanallah al-Azim. Study them like they are your father. That's how you study Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I am from a small village in Ramallah named Deir Jarir. Okay, so on the outskirts of Ramallah, there's villages. Okay, Sheikh Ziyad Hamdan's from there too, right? The previous a partner in crime to Dr. Dhulfiqar Ali Shah in Milwaukee, mashallah. Okay, he's from the same village as me in Palestine. Small village. We still have sheep roaming around, all that good stuff. It's really cool, actually. You should come visit. May Allah allow us all to eat makluba and biryani in Deir Jarir while it is liberated, inshallah. Say ameen. I remember my father told me that I was named after my grandfather, Imran. Okay? My grandfather, I met him, of course. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. He passed away 10 years ago. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on his soul and all of those who have passed. Now, I know that he is known in the village for being somebody who was well-read and well-spoken. Even though he did not go to college, but he was very well-read, very well-informed, and very well-spoken. And he would be asked to mediate in village affairs. You know how our villages are, subhanAllah. Now, when I, as Imran, the grandson of Imran, hears that grandfather Imran had these qualities, something in me makes me want to adopt these qualities. This is natural, by the way. There's nothing wrong with you knowing your family history, knowing your lineage. A lot of people, they're too black and white with these things about like nationalism or not. No, 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 no. You should know the country you're from. You should. Okay? You should know your culture. And I'm going to get into this in a second. So when I hear that my grandfather Imran wore, a scarf a certain way, I want to wear it exactly that way. That's the love that Rasulullah deserves. Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, okay? He heard that the Prophet ﷺ, he had an animal that he would ride on, and it would circulate around a certain area a certain number of times. After the Prophet ﷺ dies, what does he do? They see him. They saw him do it. Even though his animal did not want to do the same thing, but he forced his animal to do the same thing out of love for Rasulullah ﷺ. My problem with the way that Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi has been studied, with the way Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam has been studied, the way Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu anhu has been studied, Umar, Abu Bakr, all of them radiallahu ta'ala anhum, they have been studied in this, factual way that yields no emotional attachment. Okay? This is the first mistake. The second mistake is that when we study them for hype. What do I mean by hype? What I mean is, you will hear that the person who's relaying the story, he will say, ثُمَّ دَخَلَ صَلَاحُ الدِّينِ الْأَيُّوبِيَ الْقُدْسِ. Takbir, mashallah, amazing, right? Wallahi, they are narrating the story like it's a football game. Goal, right? What's the difference between goal and it's the same thing. You're studying them like it's a game. By the way, psychologists actually did research about this. So they said, if you like basketball, okay, and you like a team, a specific team, and you like a certain player, when the player makes a shot, okay, if they make a three-pointer, the level of dopamine that you feel in your mind is identical to the dopamine that the one playing feels. Allahu Akbar. Now, why is this amazing to me? Because that's how I feel like we study these people. It's not for benefit, it's for hype. Excitement. It's that. Why do you think Ortogol was such a popular show? Because you see yourself in Ortogol. You see yourself on the horse with the sword. You see, it's like playing a mental game, but is there an actual change? Is there an emotional attachment? I don't think so. In order for an emotional attachment to occur, you have to study them as if you are related to them. That's why Allah said it, and it's not, again, a marketing tactic. It's a fact. إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةٌ. We are brothers and sisters. I am your brother. Anna, in my heart, I feel the pain for what's happening in Kashmir in the same way that is happening in Palestine. Because you are my brother and I am your brother. Those are my sisters. And wallahi, Allah is my witness that I would die gladly for the cause of struggling to bring justice to the people in Kashmir and the people of Uyghur and Burma in the same way that I would love to die calling the people to justice for Palestine. Why not? إنما المؤمنون إخوة. Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi rahimahullah huwa abi, huwa walidi. And this is our role, to revive a lineage back to Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wa sallam. Even Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said it himself. You think he did not? In the ahadith, okay? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, إنما أنا لكم بمنزلة الوالد أعلمكم. Right? I am like your father, Ya Allah. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that. I am your father. It's a hadith that teaches us how to use the bathroom. Right? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, I am your father, I teach you. U'allimukum. Allahu Akbar. How beautiful is that? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about our father Ibrahim. What did he say? You know it. Millata abikum. Ibrahim. He named you Muslims. MashaAllah. He is your father. Ibrahim is my father. Allahu Akbar alayhi salam. and Muhammad sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam is my father. I feel that connection to him. I can't wait to see him. And I want to tell him how much of a difference he made in my life. He is my father. There's no such thing as a fatherless believer because we have Muhammad ibn Abdullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. That's how we should feel about them. My beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, I strike to you the example of the African American community. Do you know, really, I want you to put yourself in their shoes, okay? Do you know that most African Americans today, they are unaware of which country in Africa they come from because of slavery? Please, wallahi, that is atrocious. What a gruesome punishment. What a way to sever your fatherhood, your lineage. One of the maqasid al-sharia, okay, is hifdhul nasl, is the protection of lineage. This is why Malcolm X, Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, alayhi rahmatullah, we could say Sayyid Shuhada Ahl America, right, subhanallah. Malcolm X, why did he place an X at the end of his name? Do you know why? Because the X at the end of his name was a rejection to the last name of the slave master of his ancestors. Because the way it would work, these African Americans were forced to take the last name of their slave master. Shu ihana, what a oppressive tactic, ya Allah, how demeaning is that? So Malcolm placed an X at the end of his name, alayhi rahmatullah, to say, I reject the last name of my slave master. I am Al-Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, alayhi rahmatullah. And he changed his name. Muhammad Ali, alayhi rahmatullah, the famous boxer, same exact thing. He rejected, the name Cassius Clay. And interviewers would repeat it. And he would say that I do not respond to my slave name. SubhanAllah. Why? And wallahi, by the way, I've spoken to African Americans because I want to know how they feel about this. You know what they tell? Wallahi al-azim, when they do a DNA test, which by the way is not like 100% accurate, but generally it's pretty accurate. And they find out that they're from Ghana or they're from this country. Oh my goodness. The way they will learn the language, they will learn how to dress like them. They will immediately shape-shift into the culture that they come from. That's who you should be with Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, just because your father and mother are Muslim doesn't mean you are his son. I want to be the son of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I want to be the son of Aisha radiallahu ta'ala anha. I want to be the son of Umar and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhum and Ali radiallahu anhu and all of the Sahaba. I want to be their son. But you know the famous hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? What was it? That on the day of judgment there will be some people that Ar-Rahmah, Al-Muhdah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he will turn to some who left his path and they will try to drink from his hand and he will reject them and he will say to them, Suhqan, suhqan, bu'dan, bu'da. Get away from me. Because the angels will say, Innaka la tadri ma ahdathu ba'dak. You don't know what they did after you. Subhanallah. So I must own my lineage to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and this is the way that I study Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi. And I will leave you with a scene before we go into the role of education, just for us to understand why we must, wallahi, the jihad of America is maintaining the educational institutions of Islam. Wallahi, to grant our scholars financial sustainability so that they can look with clarity to the affairs of the ummah and produce scholarship. That is our jihad in this country. You know, Imam al-Shafi'i rahimahullah, he used to say, he's very clever, he used to say, لَوْ كُلِّفْتُ بَصَلَةً مَا حَلَلْتُ مَسْأَلَةً. If I had to worry about buying an onion, I would not be able to solve one mas'ala from the masail of fiqh. We need to make sure that these institutions are supported. But before that, I want you to see the lineage that Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi alayhi rahmatullah had with Rasulullah sallallahu ta'ala alayhi wasallam. And there are various reports about Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi, but I will focus on the ones that actually matter. Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi rahimahullah was a very profound student in mathematics and in law. And he used to memorize Arabic poetry. Imam al-Dhahabi in Siyar A'lam al-Nubala rahimahullah says, and Imam al-Dhahabi is a very strong muhaqqiq, okay, very well known. His reports, he's very strict with the reports that he shares. He says that Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi rahimahullah يروى عنه أنه كان يحفظ من شعر الحماسة. هذا ديوان من ديوان العرب في الجاهلية. Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi was not Arab, by the way. He was not Arab, okay? نور الدين زنكي أيضا لم يكن من العرب، كان تركيا. He was from the Turks, okay? and Salehuddin Ayyubi was a Kurd, technically, right? So they were not Arabs. But Salehuddin Ayyubi used to memorize classical Arabic poetry. There's a diwan, there's like an anthology of poems called Shi'r al-Hamasa. Don't be scared. Don't worry, okay? Shi'r al-Hamasa is an anthology of poems for chivalry and warriorship, okay? And so he memorized these poems. Why? Just out of his love for the lineage of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You know, by the way, wallahi, Al-Imam Hassan al-Nadawi, alayhi rahmatullah, he used to say this, okay? By the way, my favorite scholar, number one, is Imam Abu al-Hasan al-Nadawi, alayhi rahmatullah. He said, لن تستطيع أن تنجح الأمة الإسلامية إلا إذا استيقظ الأسد العربي. Subhanallah. When the Arabic language as a lion awakens in the hearts of the believers, then we will win. He said actually in one of his speeches in Lahore, Pakistan, and his speeches are in a book, you should read it. It's called الطريق إلى السعادة والقيادة. Okay? He says, يا معشر الشباب عليكم بعلم السيرة والنحو. يعني أنا, by the way, when I heard this, I was shocked. Okay? You should study Sirah and Arabic grammar. Abu al-Hasan al-Nadawi is Arabic. By the way, if you heard him speak, he would stutter. But his written Arabic, my teacher, Dr. Muhammad Musa, who's a grammarian himself, okay, he said, Wallahi, I have never read better Arabic in my life after Quran and Sunnah and Abu Hamid al-Ghazali than Abu al-Hasan al-Nadawi, alayhi rahmatullah. You must study this because there's something in the language of the Quran, not to give superiority to the Arabs. Where are the Arabs today? Okay? It's not about that. It's not about that. It's about language producing identity. When I walk into a shawarma restaurant and I hear an Arab sometimes saying this, wallahi, one time I got mad and I yelled at them, uqsum billah, okay? He said, can I get shawarma, please? So, is this how we speak? Who says shawarma? It's shawarma. Yani, just do the ra. Okay, it's not that difficult, subhanallah, right? Why are you losing your identity? By the way, even in Urdu language, there are texts. Right now, I'm teaching a text in the masjid by Abdul Mannan Nurpuri, okay? In defense of the necessity of ahadith, okay? Honestly, I've seen arguments in that book that I haven't seen from the Arabs, and many Arab ulama say that the preservation of ilm al-hadith happened in the subcontinent, and nobody denies. وَلَيْسَ هُنَاكَ مُنَازِعٌ. Subhanallah. The idea is, my beloved brothers and sisters in Islam, is that Salehuddin al-Ayyubi saw this language route to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and he took by that. And when he entered Baytul Maqdis, there are two different reports. Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Al-Fiqar. Okay. Some say that he entered Baytul Maqdis on the 27th of Rajab. Others say on the 25th of Rabi'ul Thani, which is tomorrow. Okay. He entered Baytul Maqdis in the year 583 after Hijrah. Okay. And some say the 25th of Rabi'ul Thani. Subhanallah. And when he entered, he did something that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did when he entered Mecca. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Fathu Mecca, he entered Mecca, and the narrator says that the Prophet was so humbled, he was crying, and his nose was hitting the back of the head of the horse that he was riding on. And he said, لا تثريب عليكم اليوم. Who said that? Who said that? Sayyidina Yusuf alayhi salam. He said to the kuffar of Quraysh that harmed him, persecuted him, killed some of his sahaba, لا تثريب عليكم اليوم يغفر الله لكم اذهبوا فأنتم الطلقاء. Go, I will leave you, I will not harm you. Subhanallah. And when Salehuddin al-Ayyubi rahimahullah entered into Baytul Maqdis, he said the same exact thing. Do you see? When you love your father, you act like your father. Do you understand? Do you see? That's the love that I am looking for when I look at Salehuddin al-Ayyubi alayhi rahmatullah. Now, going back to the beginning of this lecture, I said to you that there was a book that I read that revolutionized the way that I look at people. And essentially what we're saying is, study them differently. Study them like they are your father. When I was 16 years old, I read a book by Dr. Majid Irsan Al-Kilani, okay? Alayhi rahmatullah. He's a scholar from Jordan, okay? And his PhD thesis was in Falsafatu Tarbiyat al-Islamiyya, the Islamic philosophy of education. So now he wrote a book after this PhD thesis titled هكذا ظهر جيل صلاح الدين وهكذا عادت القدس. Okay? The title is, in translation, this is how the generation of Salah ad-Din emerged, and this is how Al-Quds was liberated. Now for me, Mr. Imran, who grew up on Disney Channel, Spider-Man, Batman, looking for a hero effect, this book struck me as a little bit boring, okay? But the reality is the way he talked about Salah ad-Din humanized Salah ad-Din and extracted actual sociological elements that can be replicated. And that's why I fell in love with this book, subhanallah. Because even in the title, look at what he says. He didn't say this is how Salah ad-Din came. He said this is how the generation of Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi rahimahullah emerged, and this is how Al-Quds was liberated, to teach us just from the title that the Salehuddin project was a generational project that every single demographic of society participated in. At the governmental level, with students, with youth, with women, subhanallah, with teachers, with scholars, with soldiers. The quality of the soldier in the army of Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi rahimahullah, you're talking about people who were conditioned and asked to memorize all of Surah Al-Anfal before entering into the battlefield. Subhanallah. Okay? The woman at the time of Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi alayhi rahmatullah, prior to him, Nuruddin Zenki alayhi rahmatullah, his wife's name was Zamarrad bin Jawli. Okay? Zamarrad rahmatullahi alayha, she was known to be Sawwama Qawwama. She would fast and she would pray in the nights. And there are reports that say that she used to recite 7 ajza of Quran every night. That was her wird. MashaAllah, I think if we recite like 7 ayat of Quran a night, yani we will be lucky. MashaAllah. 7 ajza, you know ajza, right? Yani chapters, okay? Not surah, chapter. 7 ajza a night. Now one night, she overslept, okay? And she woke up in a bad mood, very angry. Subhanallah. So Nuruddin, he's like, what's going on? Why are you so mad? Why are you angry? She said, I overslept, and not I missed Fajr. No, that's another, right? I missed my Qiyamul Layl. And she was so angered by this. Nuruddin Zenki, alayhi rahmatullah, was so impressed by this that he created a governmental position in Damascus, which is where he resided at the time, called At-Tubaljiyah. At-Tubaljiyah, if you go to Damascus, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring back the glory of Syria, inshaAllah, say Ameen. Yani wallahi, we are struggling everywhere. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allow us all to relive those beautiful days. He created a governmental position of people on the tabla. You know the duf? Okay? They would roam around the streets of Damascus prior to Fajr to wake people up for Qiyamul Layl. Allahu Akbar. All of that, why? Because of the hirs and the passion that Zamarrad had for Qiyamul Layl. Allahu Akbar. It does not end there. The wife of Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi, rahimahullah, was a pharmacist, and she was a scholar in Hanafi fiqh. In fact, the majority of the salasil, the silsila, when you get ijaza in Hanafi fiqh, you would be surprised how many people in the ijazat, they go through women scholars of Hanafi fiqh in the Zangid dynasty. Allahu Akbar. They were scholars. In fact, Dr. Majid, the author of the book, you know what he says? He says, nothing can give birth to the true revolution except the Muslim woman scholar. Allah. You get the analogy? Give birth to the revolution besides the Muslim woman scholar. He says there are 2 signs that we are on the road to liberating Al-Aqsa. May we all, inshallah, be gathered in Al-Aqsa while it is liberated, inshallah, say Ameen. He said 2 signs. You want to know them? 2 signs. Number 1, إتقان الشباب لأحكام التجويد في قراءة القرآن وعلماء النساء. Subhanallah. 2 signs that the youth, okay, they excel in their recitation of the Quran with excellent tajweed and makharij al-huruf, articulation of the letters, and secondly, scholarship among the women, because the woman is the madrasa, she is the school. Subhanallah al-azim. We remember beautiful stories, you know, Abdullah ibn Zubayr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, in the household that he was raised in. But do we apply this? Are we supporting women's scholarship? Every single community should have a woman scholar in residence to answer the needs of the females in the community so that they feel a direct lineage to their scholarship as well. And this is absolutely necessary. Subhanallah al-Azim. Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi rahimahullah's project was not a project where he fell from the heavens like Superman. You know, Superman has an S on his chest. Salehuddin, S, okay? No. He's not Superman, okay? It came about only because of the effort on a generational level. And I hate this one-man show idea of one man saving the world, except for one man that I want you all to know today, okay? Who is this one man? There is one man that made this generation capable of such an effort at a time where there was so much turmoil. Please bear with me and let us walk through the streets of Baghdad 100 years prior to the birth of Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi rahimahullah. If you walked into the streets of Baghdad in the year 420 after Hijrah, you would find people sitting down in the streets. Look at this, gathering around an addictive sport called pigeon wrestling. They would sit down and watch pigeons wrestle. That's how bored they were, mashallah. You would have women singers that were rampant in society. This is narrated, by the way, by Ibn Kathir in Al-Bidayah wa Nihaya, okay? Alcoholism was rampant. Fornication was rampant. And the gatherings of lahu were so loud that you would go to the municipalities to complain, to tell them to stop the noise, to no avail. You wouldn't be able to stop it. Let us fast forward to 428 after Hijrah. Financially, let's look at the financial situation at the time. The cost of one egg in Baghdad was 1 golden dinar. That's very expensive, okay? Do you remember in 2021 when eggs got, like they went a little bit up? I remember I sent to my sister-in-law as a joke because she came to our house with, just surprised her with some groceries, some eggs. So I sent as a joke, a loan repayment document, okay? Because eggs were so expensive, subhanAllah. But imagine 1 golden dinar, subhanAllah, for one egg. Khalas, you won't eat eggs anymore, subhanAllah. There was no access to wheat. It is so much so that it is narrated that a man sold his house for 900 golden dinars just so that he could afford 20 ratlan min al-qamh, 20 pounds of wheat. That's how poor they were. And this next fact, wallahi, I did not believe it until I saw Gaza, because it really can be that bad. It is narrated that people would jump into the rivers to get some leaves and eat the leaves. And you know they were doing that in Gaza. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala feed the hungry and quench the thirst of the thirsty and be with all of the oppressed around the world, inshallah. Say Ameen. This is in 428 after Hijrah. So now you could imagine at the level of social gatherings. Socially, there's a lot of turmoil. Financially, there's a lot of problems. So where do you go when you're stressed out? Or where should you go when you're stressed out? You go to the masjid, right? That's what you should do. And inshallah, we always see the masjid as a home of like stress relief, inshallah. In the year 469 after Hijrah, you would go to the masjid. And this is a historically documented fact. You enter the masjid in the year 469 after Hijrah. وَتَرَى مُشَاجَرَةً بين أنصار الشافعية وأنصار الحنابلة أدى ذلك إلى مقتل 20 شخصا أغرقت دماؤهم مصاحفهم التي كانوا يحملونها. Allahu Akbar. There was a fight that broke out in the masjid between the followers of the Shafi'i school, okay? And I, by the way, follow Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah, and mashallah, you have the Ahnaf here, so I'm outnumbered. If we fight, khalas, I'm going to die today, subhanallah, right? La ilaha illallah. There was a fight that broke out between the followers of Imam Shafi'i and the followers of Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahumullah ta'ala, okay, that led to the murder of 20 people, and their blood drenched the Qur'ans that they were holding in their hands. So all of this turmoil, you go to the masjid for some peace, and what do you find in the masjid? And you know it's true. Sometimes the political strife that exists in non-profit organizations. Ittaqullah. Fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We're talking about a generational effort now. We could put our personal differences aside, okay? He suggested nihari, you suggested biryani, now you don't want to go to his son's wedding. Calm down, okay? It's not the end of the world. You can disagree, يجوز شرعا, okay? This is يعني اختلاف مشروع بإذن الله تعالى عند المذاهب الأربعة, okay? This is okay for you to differ and disagree with each other sometimes. Subhanallah. You go to the year 480 after Hijrah. You're assuming all of this problem, where's the government? Where's the leader? You have the wedding of the daughter of Malik Shah. Okay? Malik Shah's daughter got married in the year 480 after Hijrah. And look at the decorations that were brought to his wedding. MashaAllah. And we also need to talk about the lavish weddings. Yani, let's calm down a little bit. Some hummus, some falafel. That's enough. It doesn't need to be yani, a big... Okay, anyways. I don't want to make people mad. Okay. He had in the wedding of his daughter 130 camels, 33 horses, 74 mules, all loaded with Roman brocade, holding gold, silver, and exotic jewels. MashaAllah. At the level of the government, look at what's happening. Subhanallah. In 486 after Hijrah, Malik Shah dies. And the Seljuqi kingdom, so the kingdom that was available at the time was the kingdom of the Seljuqs, okay? So the Seljuqi kingdom after his death divided into 5 competing kingdoms. Allahu Akbar. And the 5th kingdom divided again to make it into 6 competing kingdoms. This is in this area. In Asham area, the historians say you had something called a tabki'at. A tabki'at, wallahi, it's actually embarrassing, okay? Were these mini empires, okay, that did not exceed the city limits of where the individual resides. So imagine right now, I stood on this chair and I said, I am Khalifatul Muslimin in Rochester Hills. Okay, how silly would that say? It's like Rochester Hills is not, you don't have that big of an army, subhanallah. But that's what they had in Asham area. And every single kingdom would bid on the police officers to usurp the resources of the civilians and steal from them. So instead of the police being a means for protection, they were a means for thuggery and thievery, subhanallah. This was the nature of the Muslim Ummah at the time. And in 491 after Hijrah, the Crusaders, they occupied Antakya. And less than a year later, in 492 after Hijrah, they entered into Baytul Maqdis and they occupied it once again. La ilaha illallah. All of this happened because the scholars of Islam say, التدهور القلبي يؤدي إلى تدهور الأمة. Subhanallah. When the qalb is in chaos, you will see the chaos of your qalb in the outside. You will see it. Subhanallah. All of this happened because there was no power to the educational institutions, and then one man came about. 30 years prior to the downward spiral of the Seljuqi kingdom was one man by the name of Nizamul Mulk. And you know, many people, I remember when they talk about Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi alayhi rahmatullah, they give credit. For example, they say Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi fought towards the tail end, but the majority of the battles were fought by Nuruddin Zenki and Imaduddin Zenki, rahmatullah alayhim. Which is true if you're going to evaluate it that way. But the reality of the matter is all of them owe their credit to Nizamul Mulk. Some people will even give the credit, for example, to the scholars at the time, which we should. Abu Hamid al-Ghazali alayhi rahmatullah, Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi, Abdul Qadir al-Jilani alayhi rahmatullah. All of them were scholars that were present, that were in the madaris, that raised the soldiers that fought in the armies of Nuruddin, Imaduddin, and Salehuddin al-Ayyubi alayhi rahmatullah. But who is the one that gave those scholars the positions that they had? It's not the scholar by themselves. Allah, the Prophet ﷺ said in an authentic hadith, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يَزَعْ بِالسُّلْطَانِ مَا لَا يَزَعْ بِالْقُرْآنِ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give power through the sultan that which he does not give through the Quran, which means that there needs to be power. The administration of the organizations that educate Muslims, they need to position the sheikh on a strong footing so that he could teach and educate the masses, subhanallah, and make the necessary impact and do the tarbiyah that is necessary. Nizamul Mulk, in the year 455 after Hijrah, he became the governor. And he brought Abu Hamid al-Ghazali and Abdul Qadir al-Jilani, and he gave these scholars administrative, financial, jurisprudential, judgmental positions in power to make sure that they were part of the tarbiyah process. They were part of the leadership process. He looked at the budget for the army and he gave the same amount of money to education. Allahu Akbar. Yani imagine, he copied and pasted. What is the budget for weapons? That's the budget I'm going to put for pens and paper. At the time, there were many theological challenges, okay? You have al-Batiniya and certain, schools of thought that were attacking, okay, Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah at the time. And Abu Hamid al-Ghazali, alayhi rahmatullah, stood up to the plate and responded to the philosophical, arguments that were posed by some of those who were attacking Islam at the time intellectually. Subhanallah. All of that was made possible because of Nizamul Mulk, alayhi rahmatullah. And that's why the poet, he says, كان نظام الملك لؤلؤة يتيمة صاغها الرحمن من شرفي عزت فلم تعرف الأيام قيمتها فردها غيرة منه إلى الصدف. Allahu Akbar. He says, certainly Nizamul Mulk was a pearl among men, unique and fashioned by Allah from the fashioning of honor. He was so unique in his own regard, and Allah Azza wa Jal, out of his protective jealousy for Nizamul Mulk, returned that pearl back into its shell. Because the people didn't appreciate him. From 455 to 485, 30 years, Nizamul Mulk, rahimahullah, put all his effort into education. And in 485 after Hijrah, he was assassinated. But the reality is, you cannot kill ideas. So when he was murdered, Abu Hamid al-Ghazali went on his uzla. And other scholars, they continued, they took the torch. It does not end. It's okay. We continue the dars. We finished from, Al-Muqaddimah al-Hadramiyya. Let's go to Matan Abi Shuja'. Let's continue the dars. Okay? No problem. We're going to continue educating. It doesn't end. Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi, rahimahullah, was brought one day by his uncle Sher Koh, rahimahullah, who was fighting in the army of Nuruddin Zenki, rahmatullahi alayh. Nuruddin Zenki noticed the talent of Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi, rahimahullah. Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi was then sent to Egypt, and they thought it was a bigger responsibility than he could handle. He ended up, through diplomatic relations and through military campaigns, gaining power over Egypt, eradicating the Fatimid Empire, and instituting the Shafi'i madhab in Egypt, subhanallah. All of a sudden, he started gaining so much space, and he was able to open trade routes in Saudi Arabia and Yemen, and he was gaining a lot of popularity to the extent, not many people know this, that Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi and Nuruddin Zenki almost fought each other, by the way. And before that could happen, Sha Allah Azza wa Jal, that Nuruddin Zenki rahmatullahi alayhi was murdered, subhanallah. And Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi rahimahullah made it his goal to complete. And many people from the relatives of Nuruddin, they did not like Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi. And he had to go and he had to, play the game and win their hearts, subhanallah, until he united all of it under the banner of the Ayyubid dynasty. And he entered into Baytul Maqdis, subhanallah. All of this could not have been done if the people were not speaking the same language. Please take this sentence home with you. Because many times when we're working in Islamic work, it really feels like we're not speaking the same language. Some people are speaking the language of ego. Some people are speaking the language of the dollar sign. Some people are speaking the language of popularity and prestige. No. This was only possible because everybody was speaking the same language. One of the battles that Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi fought was he won the battle because there was a youth from the army, a young man, who was able to create a catapult-like weapon, okay? And that weapon is what allowed them to win that battle. It was one of the battles, okay? Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi, rahimahullah, pulled him after the battle. He said, listen, if you want to get married, we will get you married, okay? If you want money, open check, mashallah. Whatever you want. What is it that you want? Allahu Akbar. Do you know what this young man said? He said to Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi alayhi rahmatullah, he said, فَعَلْتُهَا لِلَّهِ وَلَا أُرِيدُ الْمُكَافَأَةَ إِلَّا مِنْهُ. Allahu Akbar. I did it for Allah and I don't want the reward except from Him. You want to cheat me from Allah's reward? He said to Salehuddin Al-Ayyubi rahimahullah. You see, why don't we speak the same language? Have we forgotten that if we put aside our differences, that Allah loves us? Don't we know? Don't you remember the ayah in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said about the Sahaba who they gave their bay'ah to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and Allah said what? Yadullahi fawqa aydihim. Allah's hand is upon their hands. Allah's blessing is upon their work. Do we have the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Are we focused? Or are we focused on ourselves? What is wrong with us? Subhanallah. We must look in the mirror, because the people of Gaza, the people of Kashmir, the people all around the world, they cannot afford for us to make these personal battles. Like Dr. Dhulfiqar mentioned to me earlier today, we really are lacking in strategy. We have the minds. It's so funny to me. You will have a team, a community, successful doctors, businessmen. We're talking about people that were able to face a variety of challenges. Put them in the same room together. MashaAllah, you will come out with more different opinions than there are people in the room. Subhanallah. Why? We must work on this. So the solution that we learn from this are two things. Number one, we must invest in educational institutions. Wallahi al-azim. The Prophet ﷺ emphasized in many places, فَضْلُ الْعَالِمِ عَلَى الْعَابِدِ, right? The fadl, the virtue of the scholar supersedes the virtue of the worshipper. Subhanallah. And why we are in need of that. So let us return to our roots, support Muslim educational institutions, look at our schools, and look at the leaders of the future to ensure that our work falls in line with the work of our forefathers, inshaAllah. Barakallahu feekum wa jazakumullahu khairan. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.